Well, yesterday we saw how technology can mess you up. WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. Today we're seeing it live in our studios. But we're going to remedy the situation. We have Adam Senanu joining us for a conversation. Mr. Senanu, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now on the video frame?
Yes, I can hear you. Thankfully, we've made a connection now. So already our time has been eaten into. Let's get straight to the main matters. What are your impressions of yesterday's presser at the press center, basically, on the back of the bill promoting proper human rights and family values? And I want you to react specifically to the prominence of the people who are supporting this, the likes of Professor Karikari, the likes of H. Kwesi Prempeh, the likes of Dr. Yao Graham, the likes of Professor Audrey Gajekpo, the likes of lawyer Akoto Ampaw. Your initial reactions? We have lost Adam Senanu one more time. It's very troubling. I know. But we're still trying to have this conversation. Just stay with us. We're going to get into it. In the meantime, let me walk you through a bit of what has actually been happening. So when you look at that presser, as per what was put out by those who organized this interaction at the press center yesterday. I'll just give you a brief of it because they talk about the human rights which are going to be violated should this bill pass into law, among others. So I'm going to highlight a few of the major points in there. They start by talking about the fact that their rationale for opposing the bill is contained in this memorandum that I'm reading out to you, and talking about those that are being violated in terms of our human rights. They talk about, one, the right to freedom of speech and expression, the right to freedom of thought, conscience and belief, among others. We have Adam Senanu back on the line. Adam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. So I was asking, on the back of that, press conference that was organized yesterday with such luminaries in attendance and talking about the fact that the bill you are supporting should be poo-pooed, should be thrown away out of Parliament. What is your take on that?
Well, yes, it was quite surprising, the number of astute, renowned luminaries, as you said. I think that the most staggering or striking thing was the seeming coup d'etat against science.
The seeming coup d'etat against science?
Against science. I come to this table, and there are many of us, purely from the scientific arguments that seem not to be taken into consideration in this discussion. And I have a feeling that perhaps we should start making Biology 101 a mandatory part of the content of the training of people who go to university and what have you.
Right. Because
the scientific statements made were totally out of place, and they don't seem to have a grasp about the great risks that we pose to our children and to this nation if we go down the road they are towing. So that's the most striking thing, that science has been thrown through the window.
Adam, a specific point there. You say that those scientific points made. Which specific scientific point or points are you referring to in the statement they put out?
No. I'm saying that what strikes me the most is the fact that science has been thrown through the window.
Okay.
In the context of what they are proposing, we must embrace and continue. Because this bill is founded on the fact that life is binary. The risk posed by homosexual and transgender activities is well known. Right. The U.S. Center for Disease and Prevention reports that men sleeping with men are 44 times more likely to get HIV/AIDS, syphilis, and what have you. The potential exposure to fecal incontinence, destruction of the rectum and anal area is large. The exposure to oropharyngeal cancers is well documented. The reduced life expectancy is reported by research in Netherlands and what have you. There are several complications. The impact on healthcare, the economic cost of it. So the question I ask myself is, have they really sat down, done a multidisciplinary analysis of what they are talking about? Because it's like they've thrown out, like I said, it's a coup d'etat on science. They are not paying attention to the science. And it looks as if we need to educate all ourselves again about the implications.
Are you suggesting, Adam, that this statement they put out was not well thought through? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, it was not well thought through to the extent that they did not make an effort to properly engage the sciences.
Okay, so let's look at it from this angle. Chapter 5 of our Constitution, 1992, talks about fundamental human rights. Chapter 6, directive principles of state policy. And all of them, they say, are being flouted because, in fact, they point to a number of human rights. And let me just get those for you. They point to a number of them that they say are being flouted if this bill is allowed to pass. They talk about the right to freedom of expression and speech, the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and belief, including academic freedom. They talk about the right to assemble, including the freedom to take part in processions, demonstrations, freedom of association, right to organize. And you remember the arrest that took place of some of those who had come together to talk about issues related to lesbianism and gays and their rights in the country. Basically, the right to human dignity. Do you feel all of these, I mean, the bill doesn't go against them essentially?
Well, let me make 3 points. One, the question is, are we talking about fundamental human rights here? So, assuming but not admitted, and indeed we dispute the fact that sexual orientation is a right. It's, as far as you're concerned, a practice. I mean, that is as if they've taken it for granted that this is a right. So the first thing I want to say is that let's not behave as if we're in the UK or the US. Section 104 of the Criminal Code of 1960 is still on the books, and this is a criminal activity according to our books. So let's not position the discussion starting from a point where it's like nothing exists, this is already a right. Number 2, rights are not accorded in a vacuum. And so in Ghana, polygamy is a right. If you went to the UK or US, you would not be able to exercise that as a right. So it is a social context within rights are accorded. Indeed, good law emanates from the people. A good law is one that it is owned, that is promoted, that is embraced by the people. The legitimacy of any policy is to the extent that the people subscribe to it. And so it's amazing that with 93% of Ghanaians, according to their own report, the Afrobarometer report, 1st July 2021, 93% of Ghanaians are saying no to this thing. Good law, therefore, must align to it. That's the democratic principle. So, again, rights are not accorded in a vacuum. And like I already said, the issue of saying that these human rights are something that all of us must, as it were, align with. The question is, what is the benefit? Is this a kind of human right that we are saying is one as a society? We are clear in our minds that this is something we want to accord to people, especially when the sciences show that you are more likely, I mean, amongst MSM in Ghana, 2019 Ghana AIDS report shows that the prevalence of HIV/AIDS is 18%, whilst in the general population is 1.7 to 2%. Why would we want to expose our population to increasing rates of HIV/AIDS, syphilis, chlamydia, and what have you? Why would we want to expose them
and you're pointing to the propensity of these people per the research, for example, homosexuals to acquire or contract HIV, for example. I get that point, but let's go back to the bit about the rights. And Adam, owing to the challenges, we have just about 10 minutes within which to operate. So I'm going to do this. Is the right to sexual preference not an inalienable human right? Is it not inalienable? I mean, I am born and I determine where I want to be. Like in other jurisdictions now, you're born and you're not even given a sex. You grow up and maybe you would have to determine whether you want to be classified as male or female or something in between. Should people not have that right?
No, that's again why I say the science has been thrown away. That's a coup d'etat against science, and we probably need to decide use phones, use healthcare equipment, etc. Because if one doesn't the science, then what's the point? Sex is determined at birth. it appears in their presentation that they are suggesting that in some cases when you have intersex, therefore it's not determined. The fact that the physical observation in terms of the organs suggests there's a complication does not take away the fact that we have genetic studies and equipment that will run through your chromosomes, etc., and tell whether this is an XY, an XX. It's almost as if a lack of understanding of the science leads them to make comments, very sweeping comments, which are unscientific and which cannot be supported. I'm saying that as far as the sciences is concerned, the Human Genome Project, you can check it out. I've forgotten the name, etal, where they studied 500 million human beings, drew the conclusion that the issue of sexual orientation, etc., is 75% determined by the environment and culture. In other words, the greatest determinant factor in what you do in terms of the choice of sexual orientation is the environment in which you grew up in and the culture of the people. Not the fact that you were born naturally with it. And this is a Human Genome Project. It's well known. Overwhelmingly, science has proven that there is no gay gene. Okay. There is no gay gene.
But, you know, I'm trying to put this...
If it was a scientist making this comment, that would be a different thing.
Right.
But you have lawyers trying to teach us science, and they are getting it wrong.
I want us to go back to the law, especially as that is your forte. Now, Article 15.1 of our Constitution talks about the dignity of all people, not in these words, but the dignity of all people being inviolable. When you look at some of what the bill puts out there, in fact, even if you were to speak openly in support of, gays and lesbians and their activities or sympathize with them, it would come with a hefty jail term of a minimum of 5 years, a maximum of about 10 years. If you were to even text about it, sharing such a sympathy, if you were to put material online, if you were to shoot a video, don't you think that is going to constrain us, even as in the academic community, for example, there's supposed to be some immunity there's supposed to be some immunity in that regard. Don't you feel that is going to constrain us in this country and violate myriad other rights that we enjoy?
I think that we would welcome an engagement around if you want to talk about people want to do academic work around this, and one wants to see some amnesty or exception clauses to allow things like that to happen. Why not? The thing is this. If you're a parent and you see a child walking into a fire, you know the extent of the fire. As those of us in the sciences clearly know that this is a huge fire. Right. You put in place all the restraints to prevent that child or that neighbor or that friend from entering the fire. And so that's exactly what we have done. That put in place all the restraints, but provide opportunities to help that child create the self-discipline to know that this is dangerous, don't get involved in it. Right. And if there are elements that one can then begin to say, look, why don't we vary this a bit to make sure that our friends, and this is our family, let's not get it wrong. I take exception to where they try and insist that people hate, nobody hates anyone. Even the chiefs and when we're speaking about taboos and being inhumane, we're speaking to the practice. The word inhumane, one wouldn't use it. It would be tautological to that saying the person is inhumane. I mean, what are you talking about? It's the practice that we are concerned about. It's the behavior that we are talking about. And you need to separate the individual from the behavior and say that, look, these are still our friends, our brothers, our family. We need to put everything in place to help. But at the same time, the practice must not be promoted. Otherwise, the rest of the population is at risk, at great risk, being exposed to all these things that we've mentioned. And so, yes, that's where we are coming from.
Let's talk about some hypocritical tendencies, so to speak. And those who put that presser out there yesterday have made mention of the fact that you're being hypocritical because you may talk about hidden hands supporting, the lesbian, gay, movement. But they're also talking about the fact that you, the main proponents of this bill, that is the National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values, you have also received support, Western support from the Global Anti-Gay and Anti-Abortion Network. How do you respond to that?
Well, they should just wait if we don't decide to sue them for that. I mean, that was probably...
Does that mean you are going to sue them for that?
They should just wait and find out whether we are going to be meeting on Thursday and decide. Because, you know, I was just shocked that, I mean, people would bandy and string together untruths of this kind when they have no legitimate basis for making that kind of statement. I monitored the process. I supported the process. And so I know for a fact that we sat down, did primary and secondary research, sat down, structured it ourselves. We even looked at trying to make something that was uniquely, you know, what do you call it, tailored to the needs of what we have in our context. And somebody sits somewhere or stands somewhere, and with absolutely no iota of truth makes a statement like that. I mean, these are people who've grown up and respected. So I'm trying to manage my choice of words. But I was absolutely disappointed, especially by that aspect where somebody just gets up and makes comments without any legitimate basis for that.
Right. So owing to, like I said, time, I want us to wrap on this point when it comes to the Afro barometer. It's interesting, isn't it? Between 2019 and 2021, the surveys that have been conducted, especially in this year, and then you have the statistics. In Ghana, for example, when it comes to ethnicity, religion, political parties, we appear to be 90+% tolerant, 90% plus. But when it comes to the bit about gays and lesbians and their rights, we're only 7% tolerant. And that is also reflective in our sub-region, looking at Senegal, which is on top, Liberia, with 98% aversion to you know, gay, lesbian rights. Liberia, coming down to Ghana, and all of that. And the base rate would have been 80%. So when you look at that, does that give your coalition that moral impetus that you are doing what Ghanaians really want, that you are delivering to Ghanaians what they actually want?
Absolutely. Article 1.1, Article 35.1, and plenty of the aspects of our constitution say that, look, sovereignty lies in the people. We repose this authority in the government from time to time. This is also an election issue. When 93% of your population say we don't want something, you better have to pay attention. By the way, the local wisdom demonstrated by our history, by our chiefs and queen mothers, and by our tradition, is clearly encapsulated and supported by the sciences. So I want to emphasize that over and over again, that there's sufficient, overwhelming scientific research to show that the way some Western democracies have gone is the wrong way. This embracing of a particular sexual orientation when there is nothing fundamental about it. Otherwise, tomorrow I'll wake up and say my sexual orientation is to have sex with cats or whatever it is, and everybody must accept it.
Right.
You don't just accord such rights. So I am absolutely aligning with the fact that, look, Africa, as a general, we abhor this, and there is a scientific basis to the reasons why Africans abhor this. 80% on average across Africa, 93 in Ghana, 95 in Liberia, 98%. So West Africa especially. And there's reasonable justification for this. I think that on Thursday, we are thinking the scientific concerned Ghanaians. We're thinking of running a press conference where we speak to the science. Yes.
On Thursday.
And we'll provide the evidence, the reasons why the level of complications that arise when you go down this road are not the kind of thing that we want to consider, either economically, socially, culturally, or otherwise in this country. So just a yes or no answer to this. Adam, I know we're wrapping up, but I just want to know. So you think the bill will pass in Parliament? This bill? The bill will pass, and we probably will have to meet with them in court.
Okay.
But the people of Ghana are solidly behind this, and they should run their studies again. I mean, CDD should look closely at this own Afro Barometer report.
Right. Adam Senanu, I am immensely grateful. We are together as a team for joining us this morning. All the hiccups, you still came through for us. Thank you so much for joining the conversation.
And thank you too for having me.
And let me also issue that disclaimer once more before I leave. We attempted getting the other side to join the table, join the conversation. Unfortunately, that was not possible. This is why we wrap on Beyond the Headlines. There's more as we talk tech and as we get into other matters right here on Prime Morning.